Well, it's a pretty cold and foggy Saturday morning here in Southern Oregon, and we are not at a racetrack this weekend and don't have any races planned out. It is officially our sprint car off season as we prepare for 2022 and have finished all of our races for 2021. But welcome back to today's video. Happy to have you guys hanging out with us here today. If you are new here, my name is Tanner Holmes, and I'm an 18-year-old 410 and 360 sprint car driver from the state of Oregon. And during this season, I got the opportunity to race all across the United States with the World of Outlaws at one point, the All-Star Circuit of Champions, ASCS, as well as many other series. So even though all of our races are complete for 2021, we are already looking ahead at 2022 and what we can do to make next year even bigger and better. So I'm going to get that off-season portion started inside the race shop today, get out of the cold. We're going to head inside and start stripping down the 18T, the car that I ran all season long, and our goal for today is to get it to a bare frame. So we are starting off today on the right foot. We got the engine out, and now it is time, like I said, the goal for today is to get the 18T to a bare frame. So we gotta get the rear end, everything here in the center, all the components, radius rods, the seat, which sometimes can be a challenge, steering box. Everything has gotta come off this thing to get it down to a bare frame, and what we're gonna end up doing is take this down to KPC down near the Fresno, California area. That is where those guys are located. This is a KPC chassis. They are gonna go through it, check out the right front, which there is a bend in, and then also try to fix our situation here where we got hit at that World of Outlaw race at Skagit. But it is currently about 11 o'clock right now. We are gonna get started and we will see how fast we can complete this job. So before I got started, I had to make sure that I had a spot to put all my components and my parts. So I set up that white table and I got started on the rear of the 18T. Started pulling off the rear arms, the torsion bars, the bird cages, the radius rods. So now the rear end is not really hooked up to anything. Then I started loosening the little jet nuts on the studs that connects the torque tube to the rear end, because once I could disconnect that and get the drive line out, then I would be able to slide the rear end out of the back of the race car. Now, I was kind of doing all this stuff on my own, but I did have to ask for help. Once I got the snap ring out of the rear end, which can be a difficult job, but somehow I got it on the first try, I had Carly help me hold the rear end so I could pull that drive line out because it was a little stuck in there. But once I got it at the right angle, it slid right out, and then we were able to grab the rear end with some help from my dad on the other side, and we were able to get that out of the back of the race car. Well, my parts table is starting to fill up pretty quickly. Now, one thing that I wanted to emphasize and talk about that I've mentioned in previous videos is the snap ring. Now, sprint cars are very complex machines. They're beautiful, they're fast, high horsepowered, and from a basic fan standpoint, you don't see some of the little components that are very important and can be a tough job to do in the shop. Now, this little snap ring goes around the drive shaft, which is just right under my legs, and this is key for holding that drive shaft into the rear end. If it's not put together properly, things can go bad, but sometimes at the track and even in the shop, this can just be a difficult job. So when you're dealing with this thing, it usually just takes a lot of patience. It's a lot harder to put in than it is to take out, but when I was just taking it out about 10 minutes ago, rarely this happens, but I got it on the first try. So maybe the other sprint car drivers can relate, but from me doing this many times and knowing how many hours I've spent in the shop, just some days are more difficult than others, that was pretty cool. So we finished up the rear end. Now I think I'm gonna move up to the front axle. So taking a front axle out is a lot easier than a rear end, and that is why with the World of Outlaws or the All-Stars, you guys see those crew guys able to change it within the 2 to 3 minute window. With the right guys that are really quick, you just disconnect all the radius rods, the drag link, and you should be able to slide it out, and then if you have to, you can put a whole nother one in. Now I'm just doing a couple of little jobs like the rock screen, and then after that I moved on to the Nerf bars. Sometimes Nerf bars can be hard to take off if they're bent, but most of these were fairly straight, and with a couple of hits they came right out. Well, a quick update. Obviously, we have made pretty good progress. When you're working like this, or at least in our household, things get a little bit messy. And my parts table is also a lot more full. For a little bit of reference, this car did probably right around 40 shows this year, and it saw some really fast racetracks, some really small bull rings, really a little bit of everything. This is the race car that I took around the Knoxville Raceway for the first time, ran 360 Nationals, competed with ASCS, the All-Stars, my first Outlaw start, and it held up well. So we're gonna get the seat out, get the steering box out, and all the last little things, but here probably within the next 30 minutes, 45 minutes, this thing should be a bare frame. Well, we completed our goal for the day. The 18T is completely stripped down. Pushed it outside and just sprayed it off with the hose, but I'm actually gonna hook up the pressure washer real quick because since we are sending it back to KPC, I obviously wanna take them a clean frame. And even though we wash it every single week throughout the season, there's just certain parts of your race car that because the panels are on and the rear end and all the components, you know, there's a lot of spots that you can't really necessarily get clean and it builds up a lot of grease and grit. All loaded in the back of Dad's truck. Pretty solid start to the off season. I think right now it's 4 o'clock. I think we started at 11 and I took a break for about an hour for lunch and I had a couple things to do up at the house. So really, really good timing. This thing was, you know, a roller ready to rip with an engine in it today, minus all the panels because we washed. And now we're gonna take it out to our family business. At the beginning of next week, it will be headed south to Central California to be repaired. As we talked about, it definitely is bent. It was involved in an accident or two this season. They didn't seem super major at the time, but obviously, you know, they were decent hits and it did some damage and we got its use out of it. So now if we can repair it, then we can definitely continue to use it in the future and cycle it through our program.